All right, hello everybody. Good morning. Thank you and welcome back to our next session. We are recording if you did not hear the very digital voice, and we're going to go ahead and get started so that Jennifer has the full time. So again, welcome. My name is Naomi Aladiff, and if you haven't been in one of my sessions, I'm a board member for MEEA and host for this session. I work for the National Wildlife Federation. Goodness. Sorry. WhatsApp does not play nicely. All right. I work for the National Wildlife Federation, and I'm the education manager here in Missoula. I will be monitoring the chat, trying to answer any tech questions. If you do have any problems, please feel free to reach out to me through chat. Or if you have a real problem and I can't fix it, please feel free to email Rose Valor. She is like our formal tech person. Just a few Zoom norms for this session. You can unmute yourself and of course, please have your camera on. If you do not want to be recorded, please make sure your camera is off and you've changed your name. And then again, on the top right is the gallery view and speaker view where you can toggle back and forth. And Jennifer, what view would you prefer them to be in for this session?
You know, they can choose their own.
Okay. Okay.
With your little view.
Yeah, and then I will spotlight Jennifer so that you're up front and center. But I have today the honor of introducing Jennifer Stadum, and our session is going to be piggybacking off of the previous conversation with our keynote speaker, Mandy Smoker-Broadus. So Jennifer is an Indian Education for All specialist at the Montana Office of Public Instruction. Over the past 8 years, Jennifer has worked with every tribe in Montana on culturally relevant materials and tribally specific resources for implementation across all disciplines in K-12 public education. She is currently working on K-12 science lessons aligned with Montana science content standards and relevant IEFA implementation. Prior to joining the OPI, Jennifer published her Master of Science in Science Education thesis on her landscape level research on long-billed curlews and sandhill cranes at Red Rock Lakes National Wildlife Refuge. Being able to combine her love of science with Indian education makes her job very exciting. Outside of work, Jennifer loves Montana's seasons, gardening, hiking, and her 2 cats.
One cat.
I know, I didn't want to say anything, but she still loves both cats. So I'm going to stop there and mute myself, and I'm going to hand the reins to Jennifer, and that's it.
Thank you, Naomi. Well, shalom and Hag Sameach Pesach, Tavona Israel Bat Devora. So my name is Jennifer Stadum, but it is also Tavona Israel is my Hebrew name. I am separated in my identity from my language, rituals, family connections because of the Holocaust and the genocide of family members at the concentration camps. And I think that's really important to express in the context of this conference and the messaging. So this is going to be the greatest, like I just had the greatest introduction to my session and a lot of background to the concept. So I'm hoping that we can kind of dive in. I'm delighted to be going on this third day because of all that I know that you have engaged in the other sessions. So I'm really hoping that this is a highly interactive session. You will be put in breakout rooms, and we'll be talking more about that once I get going. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. So why cultural relevancy matters, but unfortunately I cannot control this slide. So let's try this one. Okay, can I? Yes, now I can. So as you all heard abundantly now, I am with the Montana Office of Public Instruction in the Indian Education for All unit. Please, please, please contact me if you have any questions whatsoever, need any resources. I would like to acknowledge that I am sitting on the land here in Helena, Montana that was occupied and utilized and knowledge gained from millennia by the Salish, the Kootenai, the Blackfeet, the Crow, the Shoshone, the Nez Perce. Many, many tribes passed through here share and utilize this land. And I'm really grateful for being able to acknowledge that and connect with the land with my very first garden here. So I try to bring that into as I work with the land. I would also like to acknowledge the grief that Indian country has experienced during COVID. If you are unaware, the COVID virus has hit the Indian communities so very, very hard. And these are communities where the elders were particularly vulnerable. So there was an incredible loss of language, an incredible loss of just human encyclopedias of cultural knowledge. And it really has been quite devastating. One friend of mine has lost 19 relatives. So I do want to acknowledge that. I would also like to say Mazel Tov to all of Indian country on Madam Secretary Deb Holland of the Laguna Pueblo and her appointment to the Department of the Interior. This is an incredibly historic moment and fills me with great joy. And I also want to recognize, all of us who are interfacing with the public during these challenging times. Thank you so much for wanting to learn. Thank you so much for wanting to embrace, doing a better job as human beings. I really, really do appreciate that. So we're going to break out right away into our first constructivist dyad. And a dyad is an exercise to develop both our concise speaking skills and, more importantly, our very active listening skills. And so we're going to be making eye contact the best we can through the screen, which can be kind of creepy, being present and engaging only with your ears to the speaker's words, and focusing on the speaker to allow limited chatter in your own head. So there are some agreements to support a successful dyad. Respect the time parameters for the speaking times, and we'll discuss those for each dyad. Stay on topic. Only one person speaks while the other actively listens. Respect and honored what is shared and belonging only in the time and space that is allowed. And bring compassion, positivity, and respect for all. Sorry, I meant to take that last part out. We were using this in interagency. So, but yes, for anyone not present, just keeping them, holding respect for that. So your first dyad, Naomi's going to help break us into pairs, and it looks like there's going to be quite a few pairs. And for 2 minutes each, all you're sharing is your name and how you are today. So at first, person A, you'll determine who's person A and who's person B. Person B listens only for 2 minutes. You'll switch, and then person A will listen only. And this is really supporting that, that idea of personal connections give us perspective. So we're establishing a community of care. So Naomi, whenever you are ready.
Okay, just 1 second. So I'm putting the questions in the chat. Right, Jennifer?
Yep.
And then breakout, okay.
Yep.
And you're gonna have 4 minutes total. And at the 2-minute mark, please, right, switch your question. Cindy, I'll make sure you're in a room for the next one. And Jennifer, do you want pairs again for the next time?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll try and get that figured out in the meantime.
Okay, so this, oops, is, oh, okay, there we go. All right. I think almost everyone.
I think we're all back.
Okay. So just learning a little bit about establishing relationships and a culture of trust. And so, sharing your name. And also, as you establish cultures of trust, thinking about the agreements. Now, these are the 4 R's that I use in my work, but if you were in Annie's session yesterday, she had 4 different R's, but really it comes down to so many of the same things: respect, reciprocity, redistribution, relationships. Redistribution meaning, really sharing what you have to share, and respect, by respecting both the space that you fill and respecting the space of those whose space, who they should be filling that space, and honoring that maybe someone's not at the table. A commitment to the 4 R's and courage to speak your truth. So that's what we're going to use as our cultural norms throughout this presentation. So the next constructivist dyad that we have is going to be 6 minutes long. And I would like for us to take 3 minutes each in our rooms to talk about, have you ever felt excluded? How did it make you feel? And what did you do, if you did anything, to change the situation? And again, this is just a really honest, conversation. You share whatever you would like to share within your dyad, and you won't necessarily be sharing out when you return. So this is just an opportunity for us to think about what exclusion has felt like in our lives. And so, Naomi, whenever you're ready, you guys will be popping back in for 6 more minutes.
Okay, just 1 second.
All right.
Yeah, I think that worked. Okay. So 6 minutes.
Yeah, 10:23 is when they'll get switch.
Switch. Okay. Do you want to send that message?
Sure.
Okay. I will let you handle the clock then. I think we're all set.
There is a chat, but having a hard time getting to chat. Oh, that was you. Just the instructions. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I hope this works. I've never done this before. I've never done any presentation just any like this, and it's going to be strange for the recording purposes. All right. So what is cultural relevancy and responsiveness? You're not going to find this definition anywhere else, because I really wanted to express what I thought it was within the context of your work, my work, and this conference. Cultural relevance and responsiveness is bringing awareness that there may be multiple identities, cultures, languages, abilities, and perspectives that are represented at any given gathering, educational or otherwise. It is taking personal responsibility to hold space, provide a safe space, and make certain all voices are heard equally. Some people say, but I don't always see myself as an educator, like a teacher. If you are someone who is present for this presentation, you must care about social justice to some degree. And this could be with your family, your friends, your coworkers, your organization, your public, passive, as far as what does your organization advertise or display? Is it only white people? Is it only, do you have tokenization on your website? Maybe you're not the executive director, but you have a voice and you have a platform. And as you learn more, I really invite you to be brave and be bold and point these things out to your organization. And then within your public interfacing and in an active way, do you intentionally create or deliver programming that includes perspectives, ways of knowing, and try to be aware when responses to questions or comments might be from another cultural perspective? So I really invite you to dig deep, even if it's with family, even if it's with friends, even if it's with coworkers. I really believe that we do have a social responsibility to take a look inside of ourselves and see what we're capable of to create more inclusivity and cultural change that limits bias and racism. This is going to be a hard exercise, but let me tell you right now, it's completely anonymous, okay? You're doing this at home. I'm going to ask you 12 questions, and you're going to need a writing utensil and paper. If you are one of these creative types, maybe you have a pack of pens sitting in front of you already as you're taking notes. I've seen people like that at MCC was the one I was most surprised at the creativity of the note taking there. And so again, you will not be asked to share your responses. You will be asked if you choose to share what you noticed about the activity. And that activity is going to be on a menti.com. And again, that will be on the next slide. So unfortunately, okay, here we go. Sorry if this is not what you are, if you're seeing all the questions, but that's okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and dive in with these questions. The race of my parents are, in case you have more than one answer. You're going to write these things down. The race of my best friend growing up was. The race of my favorite elementary or high school teacher was. The race of my spouse or significant other is, or even the person that you spend the most time with. I don't have a spouse or a significant other, and I feel that that is a point of discrimination in our society for being single. The race of my children are, if you have children, I celebrate if you have chosen not to. The race of my current best friend is. The race of my boss, my immediate supervisor is. The race of the person I consult with, talk to the most at work is. The race of the author of the last book I read was. Sometimes this takes a second to think, what did I read last? The race of the news anchor or Facebook feed that you follow the most for information about the world or your state or your local situation is. The race of the main character in the last movie you watched. And the race of the podcast or newspaper I most frequently engage with is. So now if I can go to the next slide successfully. What did you notice? So at this point, what I would like for you to do is, if you're able to on your device, go to www.menti.com and you will enter the code 90 13 15 66. Or you can answer in the chat, just what did you notice? And again, if you answer in chat, it won't be anonymous, but if you go to the word cloud, it will be anonymous. And I'm gonna switch my screen here.
I did put it in the chat, Jennifer.
Thank you. So you can see the code. And when you begin to populate this, you know, maybe you noticed, wow, my sphere of influence is really diverse. Maybe you noticed, same race as me. Excellent. Perfect. Yeah. And there's no wrong answers here. And again, these are anonymous. I cannot see who is entering these. But this is a great place to begin thinking about, wow, if this is what I am bringing into my world, what are my inherent biases? Super white, all white. That interesting. And this is just an awareness activity. Again, there is no judgment. There's no blame, shame, or guilt here. This is just.
Jennifer, there's a question for the cloud. Which question are they answering? Because you asked a lot.
What did you notice about your responses to the 12 questions? Thank you for the clarification. Situational, excellent. Changes. Room to grow, I love that. These are fantastic. So one of the things that I will do is I will save this and attach it to my presentation. So you're welcome to use my presentation, you know, anything in it that you find useful. And so this PDF will be there as well if you are in a situation to do some trainings. So awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And we'll go back to my presentation here, I think. Oops, no, I didn't mean to go from the beginning. Sorry about that. Technology. Okay, so the Harvard University has an implicit association test. If you are interested in uncovering some of your implicit biases, I highly recommend going here. And again, it's totally anonymous and it is free, but it's very interesting to uncover various biases in various categories. And so it's very, very interesting. For me, it was very rewarding. And I think that you can also view that, you know, this work is rewarding. This work is difficult, but this work is expansive and this work is enriching. So I really hope that you feel that this is an invitation. And again, there's no blame, shame, or guilt here. So how can you make a difference professionally or personally or both? If you were noticing, like it seems like many of you were, that maybe your sphere of influence is of one shade and even homogeneous, spend time learning about another culture's perspectives. Immerse yourself in their histories, foods, stories. One of the way I'm getting to know my culture better is through the foods. I am celebrating Pesach, which is another word for Passover, this coming weekend, and I'm preparing a huge feast. And one of the things that I'm changing about how I've done things in the past is I'm adding a lot of Israeli and Moroccan spices, and I even lean on some friends for some. There's different cultures within Judaism, and so I'm learning a lot about Sephardic culture from a very good friend, and I love it because this is a world that had previously been inaccessible to me because I didn't realize that we had this huge cultural connection. And so you can read books by Native authors or Black authors or Asian American authors. There's a lot of different issues going on in the world right now. And so, you know, if there's one that's a particular fascination for you, immerse yourself as much as you can. Listen to podcasts and radio shows. And if it's, you know, Native culture, I really urge you, once it's safe again, to attend powwows. We've got the Crow Fair, the Arlee powwow, the Rocky Boy powwow, Browning Indian Days. There's so many opportunities. And yes, non-Native people are very welcome at these events. And if you have questions, humbly ask them. There's only one way to learn, and that is to engage and develop relationships with people. So I really want to bring this home, and I love how Mandy set us up for this. So she talked about in her presentation, responding to bias, discrimination, and inequity in a thoughtful and equitable manner. But the four kind of active verbs that she used there were recognize, respond, redress, and cultivate. And a reiteration that personal connections give us perspective, and we have to be brave and willing to have open dialogue and conversation with people who are different from us. And so my purpose here today is to help you make meaning. If you went to Rena's presentation on Tuesday, she gave a lot of information, and you notice that Mandy tag teamed on that with the asset and deficit based language. That's a lot of, we do talk about that a lot in my work. And so in thinking about, you know, what are you going to take from this conference? What are you going to take about your realization about biases that maybe you had never thought about before? So again, I want to reiterate this being a safe space, and that the listener only listens, and that the speaker has an opportunity to explore what are 3 things that you can do personally or professionally to bring cultural responsiveness into your platform as a human being with certain privileges. And I'm sure that some of you are aware that there are various privilege wheels out there. Obviously, I'm white. I've got blue eyes. I've got, let's not say blonde. It's definitely gray. Okay, I've got the silver gray hair, and I'm not doing anything about it. Which again is, I'm perceived as ma'am and older. And then when people find out that I'm single and haven't ever had any children, we get into some of that intersectionality that can become very uncomfortable because the dominant culture's insistence on being ever present. And that's our job. That's our invitation, is to take that dominant culture and start asking some questions like, why is that important? Why are we perpetuating this systemic box that we're insisting people are in? So as you think about your privilege, if you are not native and don't speak another language, and are of the maybe the Christian faith, which happens to be dominant in our culture, if you have those privileges, you have an extraordinary platform. But it does take some work, both internally as well as some vision. So I would like to invite you in 6 minutes to talk about what are 3 things that you've learned about this week that you feel like you might be able to take forward. Maybe it's reading a book by Indigenous authors. Maybe it's going for a hike with someone and asking them what they see, what they know about in the world. So Naomi, whenever you're ready, please go ahead and open up our dyads. And I welcome you to have a non-judgmental conversation with each other.
Okay, here we go. And I'll give you So welcome back, everybody. Remember that as you exit the breakout room and rejoin the lobby, you are probably unmuted. So if you're not wanting to share your audio at the moment, please go ahead and mute yourself. I'm going to let Jennifer continue, and then we will open it up to questions and answers.
So how we celebrate. Thank you so much for engaging in those processes so that you could help make meaning. You are here learning. That's something to celebrate. This is a learning progression. Do the best you can. And I really invite you to enjoy what you learn about other perspectives and points of view and tastes and experience. This makes life full and fun and enrich yours and others' lives. So you can make a difference in the world. Be brave and use your privilege and platform to fight against ignorance and racism. Include multiple perspectives and ways of knowing in your programming. Take responsibility when you notice systemic and inherent racism by educating yourself and gently educating others. So now I'd like to open the floor to any questions, answers, anything that you have for me in our remaining few minutes together. And you can unmute and jump in. Be brave.
There's never enough time, Jennifer. These things are always so amazing. And then you get you think 6 minutes with one person is going to be a lot. And then you're like, wait, no, come back. We need to keep talking.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Did you find the dyads useful?